All right. Sarah, you ready? Good afternoon, evening, I guess it is now.
Don't forget to use your microphone.
Testing.
You just lost it.
There you go.
I just- I thought it's a-
And I don't think there's this sense that only three can still only, yeah, just
Hello.
remember to click it.
Just in time.
For a ticket. Hey, Lindsay.
Yes, indeed.
I call to order the city council meeting for the city of Petoskey for the May 2nd, 2022 regular session meeting, and I ask you to rise with me for resuscitation. Flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm gonna introduce, let's just like- Prior to roll, I'd like to make acknowledgements here today that we have before us working.
You're on.
Shane Horn and his wife Michelle will be the new city manager for the city of Petoskey. Could you stand and take a bow? Thank you for joining us tonight. You're not a resident yet, so you're not voting here though, right? Okay. I somehow want to segue into that, so if you know of a house that's for a larger house for rent or for sale, please contact either the city and we can get a hold of Shane and his wife Michelle, or you can, okay? Next, I move to roll, and I'll go to city clerk Plath for roll.
Am I on? There we go. Demore,
Present.
Shields,
Here.
Wagner,
Here.
Walker,
Present.
Murphy.
Present, we have a quorum. Next on our agenda is a presentation. We're going to hear, we will not be voting on anything tonight, no motion. But we're going to hear a presentation by the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation on the loft at Lumber Square project. I'd like to call on
Sarah Ford.
Sarah Ford.
Good evening. How are you all tonight?
Good.
There. It's very weird to talk into the microphone and not hear yourself back. So, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Sarah Ford. I'm the Director of Community Philanthropy at the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation. I'm joined this evening by a few of my colleagues, DJ Jones, and he's Executive Director of the Community Foundation, and then my two colleagues from GA Han Development, Corey and Jerry. So they're here to offer me moral support and answer questions.
Could you give us both of their last names too?
Oh, yes, Corey Monroe and Jerry.
Just for the record.
Yes, sure.
You know.
So tonight, my goal in being here this evening is just to bring council up to speed on the proposed Lofts at Lumber Square project on 900 Emmett Street. It's been a while since this project has been discussed in a public forum, and there's been turnover on the council, so we wanted to make sure that everybody was up to speed on what's happening with that project, because from the Community Foundation's perspective, it's an opportunity to be a fantastic project for this community that will bring some much needed housing that everybody's referring to with our potential new residents, and so that's what I'm going to do this evening. And go ahead, Sarah, and we'll go to the next slide. So I thought I would give a little bit of a brief project history for those who might not be familiar. The project we're talking about is 900 Emmett Street. The GA Han development, I'm just going to refer to them as Han. They entered into a purchase agreement probably years ago about on that property. And proposed a 60-unit multifamily apartment building to be constructed using Michigan State Housing Development Authority, MISHDA, low-income housing tax credit program. That's a like acronym suit for you, but that is housing as I learned. As you are well aware, as part of that application process, the city of Petoskey approved payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot to support that project. Unfortunately, last spring, about this time, actually, maybe a little bit later, the project learned that it was unsuccessful in securing the MISHDA funding. At that point is when the Community Foundation became involved more closely with this project. We were really concerned that what was going to be a potential wonderful new housing project for us was going to fall apart without this funding. And not that the Community Foundation by any means feel like we're the savior of this project, but we reached out to Han and said, can you stay at this project a little bit longer? Can we come together and see if we can figure out a different plan, not using MISHDA funding, and keep this project alive for this community? And to their credit, they said, yes, we want to see this project happen. Let's keep working on this. And we've been working with them since then. Sarah, go ahead. So that's kind of what I just talked about. Our goal and interest in reaching out to them was to make sure that we could preserve that piece of property, that prime piece of real estate in the city of Petoskey for workforce housing. It is, as you know, located right at the end of the current end of the greenway. Hopefully that one day will be extended further. It's walkable to where a lot of our downtown employers who need employees are. And so we just feel like it's a really, really important to make sure that that property can be preserved for this purpose. Since that time, so for the last 8 to 10 months, that's what we've been working toward, is figuring out how to secure that property and take ownership of it. It is still under a purchase agreement, and we're actively working toward that. But in the spring, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation announced a new funding opportunity called the Revitalization and Placemaking Program. And this program, go ahead, Sarah, to the next slide. Oh, sorry, go back. Sorry. So that program was announced. Okay, go ahead forward. Sorry, I did a little mix up forward my slides here. So we're, like I said, working toward taking ownership of that property and expect to do so by the end of May. The Han Development has continued to work alongside us as the developer of this project, and they are preparing an application to MEDC. They're working very diligently to finalize what's called the capital stack to figure out all the sources of income that could come into that project. And if funding is successful, we would hope to break ground in the spring of 2023, and by we a little bit about the RAP program, the Revitalization and Placemaking Program. It's $100 million in American Rescue Plan funding that has come to the state of Michigan. It's for the rehab of vacant, underutilized, blighted historic structures, or the construction of new projects. It will award up to $5 million per real estate project, or $1 million, up to $1 million for public space infrastructure. Go ahead, Sarah. And there are some key elements of the RAP that I think are really important as we've been working through this project. And one of the things that we're here to talk with you about tonight is a letter of support from local regional economic development organization or a municipality. Preference will be given to projects in the qualified census tract, which this one is not, or a traditional downtown or traditional commercial corridor. The project must address the negative impacts of COVID-19. We are taking the angle of the significant impacts to our workforce that we've experienced in this community, especially as it relates to being able to find housing for the workforce. And it includes units that are attainable to the workforce up to 120% of area median income. So that is a little bit of a change from what was originally proposed for this project under MISHDA that have very specific funding guidelines, or excuse me, rental guidelines for income. And this project actually expands that scope and allows us to serve a broader range within the workforce. And then the project must demonstrate how it supports the local master plan, the downtown plan, capital improvement plan, and or an economic development strategy. So for us, I think the most important thing here is that as looking at the application, showing support from the local municipality is something that we've learned is going to be very important. Those applications that have a financial incentive from the local municipality are going to be the most competitive. So they're there's a scoring criteria, and that's one of the areas that it points toward. And we've also learned in looking through this that the most successful projects are going to leverage a number of different resources. From a community foundation's perspective, our goal is to provide financial assistance in the form of purchasing the property and taking the cost of land out of the project. We've learned that the cost of land is often a barrier to projects moving forward. Land here is in high demand and is something that is can be cost prohibitive to projects. So that is the Community Foundation's financial contribution project. We are also playing this convening role of trying to bring together the partners that are necessary in order to make this project happen, bring together the support that's needed in order to move forward. So I kind of whipped through that because I wanted to make sure that we stayed within a short time frame for you all. But I guess I'll just turn to you, Cory, and see if we need to I'd be happy to answer questions that council may have. And thank you again for the opportunity to kind of give you a high-level overview of where we are with this project and let you know that it's still moving forward and we are still doing our best to construct.
Mr. Morris here first.
Hi, Sarah. Tina's good. You said that the RAP program, that it was up to 120% of median income and that was different from MISDA. Can you tell me what that difference is? And sorry to just throw that at you if you know.
I believe MISDA is typically 30 to 60% of area median income. So
Okay.
They consider it low income housing for MISDA.
Okay,
This is considered workforce housing, workforce housing program.
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sarah, for this presentation. The housing issue is not just a Petoskey issue, it's worldwide or nationwide. And it's one of those wicked problems. And I know sometimes you can be looked at as a city, why get involved in helping solve the housing problem. But I come from the perspective that a city and municipality is a problem solving business and can even tackle some of those wicked problems. But that doesn't mean we have to do it alone. That means we do it together with our community. So I see a community taking the lead on this. And I think for this presentation, there's some ask here. I have a question for what the ask is exactly, but I would hope that the city would be jumping fast forward and trying to help the local developers and the community foundation and tackling this wicked problem. I did a little research on the RAP grant and I highlighted kind of what Sarah said. The most competitive proposals will also include a financial contribution from the local unit of government. And so I hear you asking for a letter of support. I also read that there's two different in the frequently asked questions part of the Michigan RAP page website. It says there's a letter of support that's required. I think that's like the foundational baseline. You need that letter of support. But then there's a second letter that's aimed at what is the financial contribution of the local municipality. So I'm hoping that, Mayor, we could talk about different options for how the city could support financially this project.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Mayor. I am so excited that this project has been revitalized. Despite Mishta declining us the funding back in the fall of last year. I'm so impressed that you decided to kind of reframe the issue and figure out a way to still make it happen. And so I guess some of the questions I have are the payment in lieu of taxes that we had approved before for the development, could they still be applied for if you're not working within the low income tax housing credit with Mishta? Is that still a possibility? And secondly, would there be other, because it's this new money from the revitalization and placemaking program, the RAP program is through MEDC, and MEDC this is already a designated redevelopment ready property through MEDC. Would you necessarily need to go through the whole pro forma exercise, or has that already been accomplished? So 2 questions.
Well, I'm actually gonna bring my colleague Corey up to answer this. He has actually been looking into the pilot pretty extensively in terms of as they've been looking at the financial staff of the project. And then I'm not sure I understood the second question, but Corey does that.
And Corey, don't forget to give your address because you live in Ward 4. Go Ward 4. Please.
Corey Monroe, on development.
Mhm.
I'm very excited about it. Pilot, as currently written, I think it's not effective because
Okay.
That the funding source we're applying for could be eligible for a pilot. But as for development ready sites, we actually only do construction for this program on priority sites. Program, so that is definitely a benefit for this project.
Mayor, may I? There is a second part of
yeah,
my question. Thank you. And then has the pro forma already then been done for anything that's redevelopment ready? This is like the development package before you go to Mishta. So I'm assuming that's already been completed.
Yes, we have a working pro forma.
Okay.
Pro forma, multiple programs. Still refining it.
Okay. Mayor, may I have the third part? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And then my third kind of segue question to that is, if there was a financial contribution, some skin in the game from the city of Petoskey, what would that amount potentially look like? Like, what is your ask? I think I want some kind of clarity on that. And then would hookups of utilities, water, sewer, and electricity be a significant in-kind contribution that the city would contribute? And is that something that you can leverage to get the MEDC funding? Other than hookups, any kind of tax breaks, and then actual cash donation to the process? I would think that those could be the 3 potential asks out there. Okay.
The program doesn't.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is for, I'm not sure who all, but first of all, thank you to Han Development for hanging in there, because we see this as a very important project. I think you know that. And hopefully we're demonstrating that as a city government, but obviously our foundation and others. And we're really supportive. And as Derek referenced, it's a wicked problem. Housing is wicked and it takes innovation. And I would appreciate, for the sake of everybody here, any comment from the foundation on your role and how you got involved. I don't think it's something you've normally done.
Yes, thank you. I left that out of this presentation for brevity's sake, and I appreciate the opportunity to share more about our work in housing. We got involved with housing directly about 4 years ago. We continued to go to meetings. We spend a lot of time in community meetings, my colleagues and I, and we just continued to hear how housing was a barrier to a number of things related to the economic vitality of our community. Our mission is to improve the quality of life for all people in Hennepin County, and housing was significantly hindering our ability to do that. So we started to participate in the Little Traverse Bay Housing Partnership regularly, have been a part of the core leadership team for that organization, for that coalition for about 4 years now. And our board, about 4 years ago, identified housing as one of our strategic priority areas. So they have, in doing that, they have given me as a staff person a lot of leeway to spend a significant amount of my human resources working toward housing. And then we have done a number of grants and even a loan for housing in our community. We provided a short-term zero interest loan to Habitat for Humanity to allow for construction of moderate housing. So we've had a number of efforts in terms of giving money to other people. This project, I would say, is the furthest we've gone in terms of stepping outside of just giving money to other people and actually figuring out a way for us to be involved in a solution. And the conversations around our board table have centered around, we need to play a leadership role in this. We have resources to do so, and we have leadership capacity. And if not us, then who? So that's a lot of, kudos to our board for giving us that leeway as staff to continue to pursue those solutions. And also recognizing that this isn't something that's going to be solved by one entity. HON couldn't do this alone. There's just, the numbers don't work out when you try and figure it out. So they need, we need to leverage as many different resources as we can. So that might be philanthropy, it might be locally government supporting things, private developers, state grants like we're pursuing. But all of those things, when you look at the capital stack that Corey's been playing around with, it takes a lot of different things to put those together in order to make a project happen. That's where we see our role is to be a part of that solution.
Mr. Morgan.
Next question, Sarah, from a legal perspective, since the foundation is buying the land, how will that roll out in time? Will the foundation retain ownership, or how will that, what will happen with that?
That's a great question from the lawyer.
With apologies to all.
We have formed a separate LLC that we intend to purchase the property with. That is, we're the sole entity within the LLC, and eventually we plan to transfer ownership to another either LLC or another housing entity with some stipulations and some ties that allows us to maintain some control to ensure that it remains as an affordable workforce housing project that serve that 100% council on the details of that. So I don't know all the nitty-gritty of exactly how that's going to be, but that is our vision for how it will work out. That the community foundation, I can tell you, I told you what we are doing, and I can also tell you what we're not doing. We are not the developer. We do not intend to be the owner or the manager of the property. HON is acting as the developer, and we are pursuing potential third-party nonprofit partnerships with a nonprofit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Took care of my first question. Whose name's on it? Next question. Sarah. The next question is, usually before we ever look at talking about any kind of tax or pilot breaks for development, normally we see the entire financial plan ahead of time. So it's kind of hard to make any, it would be hard for me to make any commitment right now without seeing numbers. And that's how we did it the last time with HON development was we did a pilot, which came to probably what, $33,000, something like that a year.
About 42,000.
42 finally. $42,000, but we had made that commitment, having seen what was the whole process of the cost, what it was even going to look like. So understand that while I'm sure we are committed to supporting this project, we can't at this point commit any dollars and cents. Like was mentioned prior by Ms. Walker, at times we have done commitments by being the hookups, the connections, the running the power, etc. Those type of project pieces as well. But I'm sure if you worked with our staff, city planner, but also with Mr. Terry, our city manager, we can be working through that process as we go.
And that, I thank you for that, because it was our intention in coming here to sort of bring you all up to speed and not necessarily expecting walk out the door with you to say, we're going to give you X amount of dollars to this project.
Right.
But more to open up the conversation and see if it was a possibility of something that the city
Okay.
council was willing to continue to discuss. Unfortunately, with the RAP application, we're running up into some time constraints because of the time frame that MEDC rolled it out and the time frame that they gave. So we're working diligently through that process, but would love to continue that discussion. I think some of the things that have been mentioned are all things that you would probably want to discuss as potential possibilities. But I'm going to leave that to the financial people to discuss that further.
Asking you, I have two other questions after that, but you did say June 3rd was your deadline. And we have one more meeting between now and then, and that is this 2 weeks from now on the 16th. It is possible that we would schedule a separate meeting to discuss it if it was so, but our other meeting is June 6th, so just to let you know where we're at on our scheduling. Sometimes it's hard to schedule to get everybody around. I would want a full board here if we are going to okay spending expenditures that are outside of what we have budgeted already. Two questions. Explain to me, I have a good idea, but I don't know if the rest do, and that is when we talk of average medium income, it was going to be 30 to 60% prior for the project. What is, and now we're looking at 122 questions. Could you explain what incomes would fall within that bracket? Give us some examples, as well as who's going to be in charge of overseeing that the people living there are by sure following the order where, what happens if their income arises above that? Are they expected to move out?
That is a great question. Let me answer the first question first about what the area median income is.
Okay.
So in Emmett County, last year, the area median income for a family of four was about $75,000. So 120% of that is just over $80,000. That'd be for a family of four. It goes down from there. We're talking about a one-person household or a two-person household. And I don't know those numbers right off the top of my head for below a family of four. But that's, so we're looking at households that make up to that $80,000 range.
Okay.
So certainly the workforce, right? That might be positions like preschool teachers or people who work in the restaurants downtown. It might be people who are trying to get hired at the hospital. There's any number of positions that are.
It wouldn't be just preschool, it'd be high school, middle
Teachers,
school
yeah,
teachers,
exactly.
principals.
It could be, I'm sure some city staff, it could be community foundation staff, it could be,
Okay.
it
All
could
right.
be a lot of different people, but that's the
Okay.
and then in terms of the ensuring the affordability, there would be a management company, and the nonprofit, if we go the nonprofit route ownership, they have experience managing properties that have income restrictions on them. We have not discussed exactly what would happen if somebody's income grows above that. My view on that is that we shouldn't discourage people from moving up the income ladder and then all of a sudden being without a home to live in. But that's something that we'll have to discuss as restrictions on residents.
Council, do you have any other questions? Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, so
do we need to get everybody's nod on council that we're asking city staff to work with the foundation to look at the hookup fees? So we can look at that next week, or not, our next meeting. Waiving some sort of fees, whether they be hookup fees or permitting fees.
Mr. Terry, you have anything you'd like to say?
I think.
Oh, you just turned it off, Al. You turned it off.
In these times is normally you're gonna come to us with an ask. Versus me trying to dream up things that you might be able to use.
Sure.
So I would expect for you to come to the city, me find the city planner, what have you, and we can meet and discuss what might work for you. Because I'm not sure what you're looking dollar wise. I don't know what your gap was there. So it's really glad to meet with them to discuss what their needs are to see if the city can meet them.
But we do need something
Right.
concrete to work with.
One more.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you. That's why I was asking if that could be, that's my request. I don't know if it's got to come from all council, but that's my request. And I think it's timely to mention what I've asked us as a council to talk about previous meetings is economic development incentive policy. If we had this on the books, the community foundation or developers would be able to look and they would say, okay, what is the ask I could ask? And what's a potential response the city is going to have? So right now we have nothing on the books, and there's a lot of unknown and gray issue, and it's, I think, maybe preventing a lot of good projects from happening. So I really encourage us to look at putting an economic development incentive policy before council so we can discuss it. Thank
I
you.
think most developers with projects such as this know that they're going to have to come up with some kind of a schematic of what they're looking for versus what we can necessarily give. Every project is different, whether it be water, electric, whether it be sidewalk, roadway, curb, gutter, sewer, they're all different. And I think we need to go with this process that we have in place. Council has said they're interested in us working with you. Is that right? I gather that from all of you. So what I'm going to ask you to do is work with Mr. Terry and the city planner to come up with something that would possibly be interest to the city council. Mr. Terry is well aware, he's been here 20
9.
I was going to say 20 some years, right? We'll go just under 30 years. And I think he's had a lot of experience in working with these projects and stuff, and what works and what doesn't work. So I'm saying thank you very much for standing up as the community foundation, along with Mr. Hahn, to continue this process, because I think this is great for the city of Petoskey. Keep up the good work. Come back to us with something that we can put our teeth or our money into, okay?
Thank you, I appreciate that. Can I ask council if they would be willing to write a letter of
There you
support
go.
as we were talking about that? That is the baseline, support that we need to demonstrate.
Yes, of course, you'll get that
Yeah.
letter.
I think that in addition to financial support, even a letter of support.
I guess what I'd like to ask you to do is you draft up what you feel you would like us to represent for you. Send it to Mr. Terry. He'll look at it. Send it to me. We'll get you a letter of support from the city. Okay, yeah, yes, Ms. Walker.
Thank you. I didn't mean to muddy the waters by talking about like pilots or free hookups or money or cash, but my brain is just thinking in that direction. I want to know what the ask is so that we can help move that forward. And it sounds like the ask is very much by the June 6th application. You'd like a letter of support from the city of Petoskey
Third.
at a bare minimum. Okay, thank you. June 3rd, thank
You
you.
will get a letter of support before that, okay? But as far as talking about the money piece of it,
Yes, I totally understand that, and it was not our intention that.
I know
council would-
that.
No.
would-
And you know that.
They would just give you X, Y, Z. So we appreciate the opportunity to continue the discussion. with,
In the
staff.
last years, we've done different types of
Tax
tax
abatements, type
abatements,
things,
from pilots to actual tax
tax abatements.
abatements itself. to hook up fees, et cetera, et cetera. So we look forward to working with you. Things have different lengths of time as well, as you know, with, how long do you have a tax statement? There's all those pieces that are the pieces of the puzzle that we would like you to bring to us so that we can put them together and give you that last piece of the puzzle. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, DJ, Mr. Hahn, and Corey. From 220 Washington Street. That, by the way, is Ward 4.
That's right.
You good, Sarah? Are you good? Lindsay?
Yes, we're good. Thank you.
Well, I give you guys all the credit at 4. Okay. Next is a consent agenda, and it's the adoption of a proposed resolution that would confirm approval of the following. The April 18th, 2022 regular session city council meeting minutes, as well as acknowledge a receipt of a report concerning certain administrative transactions that have happened since April 18th, 2022. Council, do you have any questions regarding the statement of Ms. Moore?
Yeah, I just have two things. One,
Page, please.
well, there's no page numbers on here, but
Okay,
this paragraph is just above approved dining deck for 2022 summer season. It's,
wait, go slow.
It's page 5,
oh, thanks. Page 5.
which doesn't really help you because there are no page numbers, but.
If you can find that heading and then you go 2 paragraphs above, it reads, city council members further discuss proposed ordinance, commented that the ordinance will help public safety to prevent potential problems. That's referencing the fortune telling. I just did not remember that comment myself, so I'm checking with others to see if they recall that comment having been made. If so, I withdraw my concern.
I thought that's what he, I thought that's what he stated was to prevent future potential problems.
This is what council members said.
So is that proposed ordinance, the future unknown ordinance that we haven't seen? Is that what it's talking about? I think there was some comments about appreciating public safety, Director Breed's desire to prevent potential problems. I don't know if that's what that's trying to get at.
I don't either. If everybody's good with it, I just wanted to raise it because I did not recall that as a council comment.
I don't recall the exact words, but I think it was, I inferred it at least.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
And
okay,
then,
because, yeah, that's good. Okay,
Okay.
next question.
and the second one's not a question. It's for me. We're moving on to approve agreement with Eagle and purchase. That's the heading.
Another page,
Yep. And
2
the-
pages.
Yep, in the second paragraph, council members inquired in the second portion, if there were any bid amount disparities and references used. That was actually me asking about the bid amount disparities and if references were used. So not that if there were any, but just asking about why there were such large disparities, and given that, since we were going with the lowest bidder, if references were used. So that's just a correction I would request.
I haven't.
Thank you.
You had already discussed it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you can have that change. Are you good with that, council? Is there anything else you wish to make amendments to, changes, or have questions on the budget? Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mayor. On page 3 of the check register for Dennis Gartland and your graph, was that the annual audit?
Correct.
Okay.
That should be at the next council.
And do they just invoice you like hourly billing? Is that why it's like broken down into 13 different checks?
No, that's me, the way I distribute it to the different funds in the city is based on the percentage of the different funds budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Mr. Wagner?
I'll make a motion Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. I have Mr. Shields.
Second the motion?
I have a motion from Mr. Wagner, a second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion, council? Does the public wish to make any statements on this approved consent agenda? There being none, we go to City Clerk Plath for roll.
Wagner,
Yes.
Shields,
Yes.
Demore, Walker,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. This is now your opportunity. If you have something that's miscellaneous public comments that you wish to share with city council at this time, this is your opportunity to do such. I have a letter, I guess, or so that I could share with you. But first, I would just soon go to the public for personal comments. Direct them to the city council, not to the audience. This is not who you're talking to. You're talking to these 5. Full name, full address, and you'll have some time to speak. Dr. Paul.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Ted Paul, 603 Lake Street. I did write the letter and I appreciate you taking it. It's difficult because, this is not an agenda item, but we have this miscellaneous period, so I get attention to that. Again, the issue was we are talking about these small cement walkways at certain properties on the Lake Street and surrounding street project that's currently ongoing. These are small walkways, but actually have quite a big impact. Some of this discussion started some time ago. I actually sit on the planning commission, and I did have a question about this project. It didn't go to the planning commission, but were there any changes? And it was said, there's no changes from the existing streetscape, so it didn't go to the planning commission. I have some comments you've read about my thoughts on that, but so that's what happened. And I didn't do much with that. As the project was about ready to start, I did get the opportunity to talk with some of the city staff out there and did mention this only because it was the kind of small little things that I thought they could be overlooked. Communication can sometimes be a problem. So I asked the question 3 or so weeks ago, and I got a positive response. There was nothing that we weren't doing these. So I didn't think much of it. For some reason, the person I talked to, there'd be different staff, and I know most of them. So I just happened to see a different person 4 days ago or so, and we asked the question, this is kind of close to pouring cement, or I think we're going to do that. And then I got a different response. It was, well, they weren't sure, and then they talked some more, and it became this response that we don't do that anymore. And the first thing that came up was, these really aren't used, they don't serve any purpose, so we're kind of taking them out. So right at that point, I was shocked. I knew there was a gap here in understanding of what goes on in the neighborhood and other use. I know what I have. I know some of my proximate neighbors. I know them winter intimately well, as I often will snow blow the whole blocks, sidewalks, and open up driveways, and I've gone across the street to the condos to open walkways. So I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. I've lived there for 30 years. So there was this gap about understanding possibly about how important these are and how they're used. So this, I do want to say this is a discussion of existing infrastructure. And although one could get into a long discussion about, do we want to do more of these? Are they really good? Are they really bad? I was kind of focusing on these existing walkways that existed at certain properties. Not a larger discussion of should other properties have them. Someone else can do that issue. So that's where I'm specifically talking about some existing structures. These do sit on the city land, the city right of way. I'm very much aware of that. Later in the discussion, as you know, I mentioned there was some discussion of the American Disabilities Act and how that might be impacted. And there's some question about that. From my perspective, the existing sidewalk grid we have, which is ADA compliant and will be ADA compliant, serves the purposes of everyone to that regard to transverse the town. These walkways cross the sidewalk. And I don't think in any way prevent or inhibit the standard use of the sidewalk. So these are in the city's right of way. They're in front of certain properties and not others. I get that. The impacts Mine was, I would say relatively minor. I can get in my house. I'm not gonna misrepresent that. The postman, the delivery people, and some visitors in the winter very much use that pathway. It's right in front of my front walkway to my front of my house. And it's the easiest thing to keep open and the worst of the worst. On the icy days, it's the smallest thing I can seldomly save. So I take that pretty seriously. Some of my neighbors have more serious issues, real property issues with access. I feel because I sit out and watch the Lake Terrace condos across the street from the kitchen window, they have significant issues with elderly people, that handicapped person. And they are able to get picked up right at the end of the little walkway, which they really try to maintain open in the winter. The city doesn't do that, but that's really helpful for them. So that's our issue. I have to be sensitive and realize this is not an agenda item tonight, and I get the process. I'm happy for the opportunity to speak now. I know you're limited in what you can do tonight, but perhaps you can discuss this a little bit in your city council comments at the end of the night and do what you will with it. I just want you to know it's a serious issue, big impact on people's lives, and I'll let others speak to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir,
I'm Jerry Ernst, 209 William Street. What Dr. Paul's talking about, that's talking about, directly affects my house. We had 3 steps that post lady uses to get to my upper level, so she can get up my stairs to deliver the mail, or he can. And without those, we will have a very difficult time coming up my driveway. I have a cutout driveway, which has been impacted a little bit by some of the movement along the street, but they're doing a remarkable job. The city of Petoskey is doing a great job. Elmer's is doing a great job. But without those steps, there's going to be a real issue, I think. You know, people can't get up to my porch or to my rails to even get onto my property to deliver the mail. Or if I have company in the wintertime, they can't get up. They have to walk. They have to walk all the way to the end of this William Street, turn the corner and come back from Mike and Denise's house or from a doctor's house to get to my house, because I'm right in the middle. I'm in the middle of William Street. And it, it's an issue with me. I've fallen several times. I'm disabled, pacemaker and all that stuff. I'm really more concerned about the mail and concerned about deliveries. I'm concerned about people that come to visit anytime that it's cold or icy at all. It really affects our neighborhood, affects our way of living, basically.
Can they get to your house? Can they walk on the sidewalk and then walk up your steps on your property?
If they go to the end of the street.
Okay, but they can access the
Yes.
sidewalk on both ends.
Yes.
Okay.
They go to the end of the street, they can do that.
Okay.
I've noticed that some other streets, Division and Lake Street houses have theirs yet. And I was kind of told that they were going to be preserved or put back in.
By who?
One of the guys at Elmer's, but maybe Elmer's did not.
Yeah, Elmer's not, that's not city staff.
Right. Well, thanks for your time and listening.
Okay.
I don't put it on that same street. The only thing I would add to.
I need a name and address.
And the last name is correct.
Okay,
Same
Okay.
house. The only thing I would add to what Jerry's saying, unless you come down that street, we are the only home on that street. And you can't correct your incline, because if not, we're in the shoe stores. As we back out of our cutout, we go right into whoever owns the shoe store in town. Into his driveway sometimes, because you have such an incline. And I know you can't correct that.
Mhm.
But the other thing is, it's 3 steps, wide steps, just 3. That street, you don't have parking on either side of the street. So in the winter, you can't park on the other side because you have no parking next to the apartments.
Mhm.
And so on our side of the street, you can't get to our house. Yes, you could go to Bluff, and I could ask, my family, to go down to Bluff and try to find a spot to park there and walk down, but you can't You have to come down if you follow the sidewalk, come up my steps. The other thing is, I haven't, you know, everybody's working hard on trying to get stuff. I can't take the garbage down this lot because it's all dirt now, so that's another issue. In the winter, there is no way we can take our garbage down that line that you're going to put back in. We can't walk down that. We need those 3 steps to park out front, use the railing, to get to the sidewalk. We can't get to our house. We right now are on the other side of the block, walking in the back. It's not our, grandfather didn't probably. We are the only house really missing 3 steps and a cutout down that's damaged because, you know, of bringing up tree roots. We have no way to. Unless we go in the apartments, you're not, you know, and when you're coming home from the store, and you like to use that little pathway there, nobody parks in front of it. It's the 3 and 3 steps. That's all I need to get the groceries. You can't, the cutout is like this, you can't open 4 doors. Just like the city ones, so the driver hit the wall and then all that, they couldn't. You don't have it. You know, 3 steps. In the winter, you can walk. And not walk. And I think it's on the job, and then they kick it out of the little and bounce it down 3 steps. You can't put it down. It's where it's supposed to be. So you can understand that, maybe drive by and then. Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Karen Steele. I live in Lake Terrace condominiums. 555 East Street, Unit 2. I'm the corporate treasurer for a 16-unit condominium complex and responsible for communicating the timeline and required notices to our owners for the city utility and street projects on these streets. We were originally provided notices and delivered by the city that did not include a third of our owners. Because some are landlords, these notices also. Jason Faith, the city engineer, and I worked out a system where he communicates with me, and then I put out email notices and updates to all of the owners. It's worked very well, and I hope it saved the city some time and labor costs with any longer. Today, I learned for the first time from a neighbor that the sidewalk extensions are not being replaced. Part of the project, or in simpler terms, the city is not replacing level. So we are pleased that the city is improving utilities and streets surrounding 2 sides of our complex. We were not informed, nor could I find anything in the master plan that stated the city would not be replacing the sidewalk. So we make sidewalks to the street. We currently have 3, 1 from East Lake Street and 2 on the Logan side, which are in the back. Some statistics, which might seem relevant or not, 88% of the residents are older, 75% of the occupants are 60 years old or older. Regardless of the age component, our occupants strive to walk, bike, and carpool in our pedestrian-friendly town, which is also the center of the former Smart City program. Some of them rely on rides or public transportation. We use the sidewalk extensions daily. None of our occupants have this. Not all of our occupants have garages, and therefore street park unloaded. As Mark's described. Using the sidewalk extensions daily to access the back door. We have a vision impaired owner who has been a resident for 25 years and uses sidewalk extensions for pickup almost daily. All of the delivery services, FedEx, UPS, and the post office use the sidewalk extensions. It is a safety issue and therefore a liability issue. We are diligent in keeping these his block, I clear all the time. With Without the sidewalk extension, we will have to use the street corners and or the city alleys that surround the other two sides. They are deteriorating. Now we have to say. Our owners paid $31,739 of property. In 2021, we feel they have the right to representation on this issue. That is, we are asking for the sidewalk extensions to be replaced as we had anticipated in this part of this project.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address council? Sir?
I'm Parker Fairbairn. I'm from 2287 Best Road over in Little Traverse. I just want to introduce myself to council. I'm running for state representative here in the 107th district, and as a Republican, all pro small business, small government, and small taxes, and I really just want to energize the youth and engage the youth back into politics, because I think we're starting to lose that a little bit. So thank you so much, and I'll take any questions after.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address council at this time? There's one comment online. Sarah, would you open it for us?
Hi, this is Allison Patton. I live at 602 East Lake. I also want to make some comments about the construction that's going on there. Can people hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. I know that you probably have the letter and attachments, the email and attachments that I sent to Tina Demore. She said that she would make copies for everybody, but I would like to say, I think there's two things here. There's process, and did the city use the proper process here? You're hearing from a lot of people who are telling you the reasons why they should have what they had before. And the other piece of it is the reasons why we need what we had before. In my case, I cannot park in front of my front door. I use the back side of the house for ingress and egress. That means I have the option of using the driveway, but in the winter, sometimes that's so iced over, I can't even get my SUV up the driveway without it sliding down the ice and possibly crashing into a car that's parked on William Street. And so obviously, if I can't get up the driveway in the winter, then my option is to go up my steps. I should be able to go from William Street up steps that are a flat surface all the way up to my house. The city, without my permission, without my prior knowledge, without prior notice, without any opportunity to have input, has taken those steps out. And this seriously diminishes my use of my own home, because it's not only just a wintertime issue. Even this past summer, when I was awaiting hip replacement surgery and hobbling around on a cane, I could not go up my driveway with a cane. That really would not be recommended for anybody. The only way I could get down to street level of my own home in order to do weeding or something like that was by using the steps. And that also requires me to use steps from the sidewalk to the street. And even after my surgery, I was told, don't go on slopes. So once again, I need those steps. It is not an excuse or justification to say that, oh, the city doesn't do that, because at 201 Division Street, and with my email, I submitted a street view of this. When the city put the new curbs in on Division Street, they either left those steps that were already there or put in new steps. I don't know. I can't tell from the street view how new that cement is. In my case, there was no reason to tear my steps out. No reason at all. There is no sewer going under those steps. There's no electric. The electric hookup was already done. The only reason this happened evidently was just to make it easier for the contractors. Well, what about me, the city resident that needs easy ingress and egress from my own home? So those steps off of Williams, if they are not going to be restored, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I'm going to continue living in that home as I get older. In addition, like Ted Paul on East Lake Street, I also had a pre-existing walkway from East Lake to the sidewalk, and then for somebody to come up the front steps. Why is that important? Well, US Mail, FedEx, UPS, any delivery services, they only deliver to your front door. And we should be making it easier for these service people, not harder. We should be able to be facilitated by the city in creating a clear and safe walkway for these folks. So if that is not replaced, now what? How do I keep that clear for them? Am I supposed to shovel grass? Am I supposed to put de-ice grass? So these existing features of our property, I appreciate the fact that it's on the city median, but that really doesn't change the fact that these are pre-existing features of our homes that had significant utility to us, and they should not have been removed, and we should not now be being told that they're not going to be replaced without the proper process being followed. So I'm hopeful. I would ask that the city council get a legal opinion from the city attorney addressing the process issue that's been raised by Ted Paul, and addressing also the impairment of use and enjoyment of a person's own property. Because if these are not restored for me, I very much feel that my use and enjoyment of my own property has been impaired. I thank council for your attention to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to council at this time? Good evening.
Evening, yes. I'm Joanne Galloway from Lansing.
Go for it.
3100 East Mount Hope Avenue. Anyway, I'm the executive director for the Center for Change, Northern Michigan Advocacy. I just wanted to take a moment while I'm in town working this week to come and introduce myself and just briefly a little bit about the work that the Center for Change. Specifically tonight, I want to highlight that we're celebrating. So the Center for Change is hosting the big party in Sault Ste. Marie this Friday evening. I believe all of you, council members and Mayor Murphy, have received a handwritten invitation in the mail from us. And we just want to lift up really everyone in the room tonight who's here participating in civic engagement, because that's what we're all about, encouraging people to participate in their local government. We want to educate, inspire, and empower our neighbors to participate. So thank you to everyone who's here. And I just want to lift up Mr. Chairboard, Sharon, and thank you for that. Come and see us in the Zoom on Friday night.
Thank you. Let's see. We did get a city opinion, is that correct, from our attorney on the work that is being done?
I have a formal city attorney opinion on the work that's being done. His opinion is it's city right away, and the city does have
Have the
the
right.
ability to remove whatever's in the city right of way and not replace it, which is what our practice has been for a number of years.
Okay. Any other public comments to city council? Oh, yeah. Come on down.
This is Allison Patton again. I just want to say that that has not historically been the city's practice. Look at 201 Division. a new curb was put in there, and their steps from Division Street to the sidewalk were preserved. So I don't know how or when this got changed, but I had no reason to expect that my property would be treated differently.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, Ms.
Mayor, if I may make a comment directly to Mrs. Patton about what she just mentioned.
Sure.
So I appreciate the opportunities. I did a little bit of research and investigation myself this weekend. I talked with the DPW director, and I also became aware of both this 201 Division Street, which is actually the work that was done on Division Street was a mill and fill. This wasn't a total undergrounding of utilities. It wasn't the extent of work that is being done on Division Street. This is also a residential property that has a business in it. So Dr. Denton's office has historically and may still currently be on that property at 201 Division. So the scope of work that was done on Division Street is not apples to apples to the scope of work that's being done on Lake Street. Furthermore, when I looked at how many of these sidewalks existed on Lake Street, it's historically in front of Victorian homes. There was about 14 of them on Lake Street. When I traversed Mitchell Street with those same historic structures, Kalamazoo Street, which is the most recent full scope of work with the undergrounding of utilities, all of those sidewalks have been removed. Emmett Street, the block that I live on, I also have the steepest driveway in the city of Petoskey. Place your bets right now. And I am very familiar with how precarious it is and how it requires a lot of maintenance and due diligence on my part to keep my very pitched driveway, protecting my vehicle from bottoming out every time I pull out of my driveway, as well as maintaining that space for postal mail carriers and delivery people. So very aware of those challenges of living in a very steep driveway and not having to replace my driveway, but having to stay in compliance with ADA and the sidewalks and the pitch and the level and everything. So I understand those challenges intimately. When I looked at this issue, I asked Mike Robbins, what is the policy? What is our procedure and policy for replacing utilities and this replacement of what is really ancient infrastructure? These are, like Ted Paul mentioned, like 50 to 70 years old, these little sidewalk. How is public money being used for the benefit of public good? So these sidewalks and ways to traverse across the street and travel the sidewalks and get to people's homes are public space, and the intersections serve that purpose. And when I look at Kalamazoo Street and I look at Mitchell Street and I see that these things no longer exist, that's how I know what the policy is. And there's only been one exception to that, and it was brought to my attention as well. It was on Emmett Street, and it was Dr. Will's home on Emmett Street on the corner of State and Emmett. And at the time, they were doing the road construction project, undergrounding of utilities, everything. And he needed to replace those steps because he had a business in back of his house, a dentist office as well. So the city had to go through a little bit of a legal channel, and he had to sign a disclaimer or some kind of legal document saying the city would not be held legally responsible for that, and they weren't responsible for the maintenance. So there's exceptions to every rule. Of course, there's variances that can happen, but I'm looking at what's the overall policy and what's for the public good. And all of these projects that we've undergrounded 70% of the city. Is that right, Mayor? I know that you love that number. Yeah, about 70% of the city has had the utilities undergrounded. So we're about 70% complete. And if you look around at all of the 70% that have been done, you can see that these little sidewalk steps areas no longer exist, with the exception of very, very few exemptions to that, I guess. So that's what I wanted to share.
Anything else? I've also had many contacts with I've talked to city manager Terry, I've talked to our city attorney, I've talked to Mr. Mike Robbins, our public works director, numerous times over this matter, as well as residents. Thank you for contacting me. I believe when I came on the planning commission years ago, we didn't have a sidewalk plan. And I had two small children that were 2 and 3. And I said, when are we going to have a plan for sidewalks in front of schools? This city has done a great job of putting in millions of dollars to upgrade our sidewalks and our ADA cuts at the streets. We are working to process to make that available to everybody. It is hard for me to support one home being specifically treated for a walkway that's on public land, which would require who's going to plow that or shovel that. Right now, we have a commitment to the city of Petoskey resident that we will plow. We will clear all city sidewalks. Not many cities have that. We do the best job we can. They're plowed. That would mean city would have to take care of this extra pieces as well of being plowed. Plus, they would need a curb cut for an ADA for somebody with a wheelchair. I know some of you say no, they wouldn't, but I would not support us putting a sidewalk any place that does not have an ADA cut into the roadway. That is to me as a necessity. I've talked to city attorney and I've talked to the rest of the staff. And I feel that we are in our rights. The city is in its right to move forward on this project. Is there concerns about stuff not being reviewed at the planning commission? I really can't address that. Can you, Mr. Terry?
I cannot,
Mr. Moore.
So for me, 2 questions remain out of these difficulties. And the one, sort of following up on what Lindsay has said, I'm unclear why the steps exist at Division. Was it because it was a mill and fill that we leave steps? Was it because if it's a home and business combined,
No.
steps are left? So that's one question that remains for me.
It was the mill and
They
fill.
did not tear out the whole street, they did not tear out all the curb.
No, the curbing
When you tear out total reconstruct, that's when we tear everything out
and start
and
over.
replace it all new. They were doing some mill and fill there, they did an underground electric connection right in front of those steps that cut across, went over to the county building where you see those big transformers on the ground. That's what that project was. As part of it, it did break up some of that curb, which was replaced. So it was not an entire reconstruction of the road where we take out all the curb, gutter, sidewalks, et cetera, and replace everything.
So the distinction is if it's a mill and fill, steps are left. And if it's major construction, they're removed.
That's
Because
what it's
you're just
been.
bringing in a machine that just mills up like an inch or so, and then you just put down asphalt and that's it. When you tear out the entire street, then you've got all the excavators there who can do all that type of work and tear out all the asphalt, all the sidewalk, and then replace it.
And so they're torn out whether or not they need to be.
If they're in the city right away, they need to be in our
Okay, regardless of condition. I guess
condition
that
has
would,
nothing to do. None of these have been built in any recent years because we would not permit that. We would not issue a permit to put in sidewalks and
steps.
sidewalks, steps, whatever. Dr. calls it a sidewalk, not step.
Right, but relative to steps, you would not permit those to be in the right of way.
Correct.
And then my second question is this issue raised by Dr. Paul regarding, he indicates that there was no planning commission review of this construction project, which is a violation of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, Act 33 of 2008. When somebody tells me we're doing something that's not legal, I like to know that that is not the case, hopefully. Have we had an opinion on whether that is so?
I don't have a formal one right now. Our city attorney has never really said, it doesn't feel that it's that way. I guess you can interpret it how you want. I've talked to city planners and they've said they don't do it. I mean, I don't know a city that does it, where you send all your plans, your street plans, et cetera, to the planning commission. I don't know what kind of review they would do. It's not like you have a zoning code that says, this is what your street's gonna look like. This is the width, et cetera, like you do with a site plan review. So to me, if they were to do anything, it would have to be more of a cursory review of, we'd like to have 6-foot sidewalks or a bump out here, or leave things in like sidewalks and that kind of thing, which would not be a directive, but just think about that kind of thing.
So for my part, I'm only one person. I'd like some clarity on this from our legal counsel. I don't know if others are interested in that or not. Thank you.
Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. One question I have when Ms. Walker brought up Mitchell Street, maybe another street. Has this question been raised by members of the public before?
Never. What I asked Mike Robbins, he said he's never had somebody complain about us taking out the sidewalks and steps or whatever they may have taken out.
Thank you. So that makes me think, well, should we respond differently now we have this new request, this new inquiry from the public that is bringing up potential legitimate safety concerns. I heard legitimate safety concerns tonight. And so, I have then some follow-up questions. What type of cost are we talking about? And should there be some sort of discussion to address potential safety concerns? And I know that there's questions about precedent and there's a whole bag of questions that come up with this that we need to look at them all. But I'm a little concerned about just moving forward because that's what we've done when there's a potential literal safety concern. So I'd hope that we look at a little bit more about what is that cost and can we leave existing structures in there? And the question of ADA needs to be addressed and have a legal statement on that. Potentially that this would be outside of the ADA if it's replacing old structures. I don't know, but I guess I would be interested in having some of those questions answered. Thank you.
Ms. Walker.
Thanks, Mayor. I think in terms of like why there wasn't a planning commission review, I mean, from what I understand, the DPW does not have a board that it goes to like Parks and Rec or Planning and Zoning. They leverage funding from their street funds and a public utility that is self-funding, basically with the assistance of state and federal money for road construction projects, which are done with the mill and fills and these major reconstruction projects. And there were no changes. What's being done on Lake Street is what's been done at every project where there's been a complete undergrounding of utilities. So why would you need to go through a process of planning commission to do something where there's no changes? There were no change orders or things that would need public comment and review, I don't think, from the sounds of it. What's happening with Lake Street happened with Harvey, happened with Emmett, happened with all of the places where the 70% of all the utilities have been undergrounded. So you just have to go street by street, and it's all been done that way since the beginning, with a few exceptions. So there's been no change, which would not warrant, from what I understand, planning commission review.
Thank you. I'm not going back to the public at this point. So any other discussion, council?
Yeah, Park and Rec. Big Park and Rec. That also goes back. A lot of the places on Lake Street.
Okay.
They don't. On my street. We have steep street, they don't. No question. So the old folks over at the Arlington place don't get their step to get to their cabs out. So we can't let the post lady, the postman, the people come up to stuff.
Barry, do you have any comment? Next is city manager's update.
The public safety open house is scheduled for June 18th. And that's between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. So we got a little ways to go from there for that. Public safety accreditation assessment is going to be held on May 11th and 12th. And what accreditation would mean to the public safety department means that you're certified, the department has all the policies in place. It basically follows all the state standards and what have you. So and I think like Matt Breeds mentioned before, there's like 100 and some policies they now have in place in order to get this accreditation. So it kind of means that your department doesn't just have these policies, you also have to have systems in place to show that you're following all the policies. Every time something occurs, there's a follow-up to it, there's reporting that's being done, their standards are being met. So it's not just create a policy and throw it in the drawer. You definitely have to keep the policy going. And it gets reaccredited every 3 years. So that would be a big accomplishment if they do pass their accreditation that day. And then as part of one of the city's projects that we kind of did, where we sold that property on Emmett Street, the house was
Actually,
moved
Washington.
last Sunday from State to Emmett Street.
It's actually
Oh, I'm saying
Washington.
I'm sorry,
to
I get all the ones wrong. But and it happened, I guess, very smoothly and very quickly. Mike Robbins had heard about it. He was driving down, and by the time he got there, it was already done.
Yeah.
And it was just, yeah, so it worked very well. And so that was a nice project that we've seen come to fruition there, and hopefully it all worked out well.
Is a new house going into that place where this existing house was taken out?
My understanding, the owners are putting in a garage. That was a reason for trying to, it's really cramped there. They don't have a place. They wanted a bigger garage. I can't remember if the two people are going to share it, two owners.
And around the
Or some
corner,
property
there's
owners or
another
something
house
was gonna
being
happen.
raised. What's that happening?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay, council, do you have any questions? City manager's update. Does the public have any questions or comments on the city manager's update? To be it known, we go to new business authorization, authorize a contracting with Wallstrom Dock and Dredge Incorporated of Harbor Springs for marina ice damage repairs in the amount of $50,050.
Sure.
I turn it over to city manager Terry.
I do have Kendall Klingelsmith here from Parks and Recs Department if there are questions, but it's kind of been an annual thing, although I think the last year or so there might have been some times when it hasn't happened, but we get the icing in at the city marina, and there's like a jacking process that occurs between, they grab a hold of the pilings, they tend to lift them and pull them out of place a little bit. So it's kind of become an annual process where we have to do some work out there, and we had $50,000 budgeted for whatever damage might happen this year. And we have one bid of $50,050 to do that work. I think we're getting fewer and fewer bids, probably because of the amount of work that's available out there, but also when we are fortunate enough to have a dredging company, dock and dredging company right across the bay, the short distance from which they come, I think makes their price much lower than their rivals, which would be coming from like Sheboygan if it's right and what have you. So they got to come all the way around. So I think that's why you're probably not seeing a lot of bids, but maybe Kendall can speak to that too. So we're looking for council's approval to get the damage repaired. Obviously, it's May now. We've got boats out here, so we've got to get it done and get the pilings down. So,
Mr.
yeah.
Ms. Walker.
Mayor, I have a question. Thank you. Can you tell me, Al or Kendall, when was the last time we had to do ice or do this kind of repairs?
I'll let Kendall speak.
2019.
29, okay.
And we've had significant damage in the past where you have some of those pilings, I mean, look literally like that because they've been jacked up so high.
We have one in the bar.
And so do you try to budget for that annually or just every couple of years? Okay. And it's usually about the $50,000 mark?
It was, the last time we did it was 57,000. I don't recall what we had budgeted that year, but to city manager's point, the fact that we don't have to, particularly with gas prices, the way they are, bring a barge from Charlevoix or Sheboygan
Mhm.
is significantly more than bringing a barge across from Harbor Springs. So we're fortunate that Wallstrom bid on this project.
Excellent. Thank you.
I do know there's been times.
Keep in mind, we did have some high water issues.
Yeah.
The last few years that we needed some emergency funding, so it really balanced out where we didn't, may not have had dock issues, but we had shoreline issues and other
Right.
stuff, so.
I do know we've had costs of over $90,000 before in previous years to get the amount of work done.
A reminder that this has not come out of the general fund, street fund, or anything else. Comes out of the the restricted funds that is collected at the marina and money stay in the repairs and the upkeep of the marina. So this is not costing the general public repairs on this.
Correct.
Mr. Shields,
Make a motion to recommend city council authorize the contracting.
Support.
I have a motion from Mr. Shields. I have a second from Mr. Moore. Any other council discussion? Does the public wish to speak on this proposal? Turn it over to City Clerk Black for roll.
Fields,
Yes.
Moore. Wagner,
Yes.
Walker,
Aye.
Murphy.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Kendall. Next. On the agenda. City council comments. Start with Ms. Walker from Ward 4.
No comment, Mayor. Thank you.
Ward 3, Mr. Wagner.
I actually do. Thank you, Mayor. Last city council meeting, you read a wonderful proclamation recognizing Sexual Assault Awareness Month and our Women's Resource Center. And I kind of left the meeting thinking, I wish I'd have said more to thank them. And in the last couple of weeks, I was reading a couple of books, one of them called The Rabbit Effect by Dr. Kelly Harding, who described, the book is described as groundbreaking new research shows that love, friendship, community, life's purpose, and our environment can have a greater impact on our health than anything that happens in the doctor's office. So strongly recommended book. In the last chapter, she mentions a kind of a chance meeting with a young woman named Nadia. And weeks later, she saw her on TV, recognized her face, and she was being honored for the 2018 Nobel Prize, along with a Mr. Dennis Mukwege, a gynecologist specializing in the treatment of women victimized by sexual violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Nadia Murad, a human rights advocate who survived sexual slavery by the Islamic State of Iraq and published a memoir of the ordeal. Each of them, in their own way, has helped to give greater visibility to wartime sexual violence so that the perpetrators can be held accountable for their actions. Reads the award citation. It brought back, since it's a Sexual Awareness Month here, it just resonated with me. And I know I've had friends and family helped by our Women's Resource Center, and I just wanted to say thank you to them again.
Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two comments about safety and walkability. The first one I was going to bring up tonight was last year we had talked, I can't remember what we ended up doing with at the Epler Road in US 31. Yes, 31 there, where the bike route was brought up into the highway, and think about the safety of people walking and biking along the highway there, and if there are temporary ballards, what we did last year, or what we're thinking about regarding keeping pedestrians and bikers safe along the highway there. And then the second one is what I brought up tonight is thinking about safety and walkability, and maybe those side yard sidewalks and stairs are not something that we should put back in, but you know, at least tonight is the question that I thought has been raised that I maybe do fair process and thinking through, and that are what's the cost we're talking about, and what are the actual ADA restrictions if we put those existing back, would we have to make those ADA compliant or not? That's some remaining questions in my mind.
We're talking about along the highway, on your first question, those ballards that were on the highway will be put back in.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Moore.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone that came this evening to express their concerns about the project on Lake Street. My questions remain, which I would like to have addressed by counsel for the city, because I think without that, we actually don't have an answer to the issues that I posed. Beyond that, I just want to call out an article in MLive and send kudos to Emmett County. They recognize the Emmett County Recycling Program as a state model, Ms. Walker, with a $1 million revenue source. Congratulations to them and all their efforts in Emmett County. It's really remarkable. Second of all, I just want to mention that Petoskey is in very good company regarding the Ukraine peace installation at the Crooked Tree Arts Center. In addition to Petoskey and Denver, last week, the third installation of the same piece went up at the Oculus Tower at the Freedom Tower in New York City. Thank you.
Thank you. I was contacted and helped to assist and write and then edit and did a proclamation to the Trail Council's request, whether requesting money through federal representative, US Representative Bergman. So I was quite involved with that for a bit. You know, I appreciate people coming. None of us are all going to agree on everything. Hopefully we find an agreement where we agree on 90% of the stuff. There's too much taking sides on this. I don't want you to feel that that is a part of what's happened here as far as I do understand your concerns on walking, but I do also understand the part of the city on the costs and the projections and the ADA, et cetera, et cetera. We will do as best as we can and try to continue to work as best we can as a city. I have confidence in the staff, and perhaps we should get a comment from the city attorney on some of this. There being no further business coming before this council, I call this meeting adjourned.